couples, and us. So this talk is dedicated to her family and her loves, Robert, Bennett, Oliver, and Alexandra. So without further ado, Dr. Burns.
Hi. This microphone doesn't move and I do, so this is going to be interesting. All right. So what was it in the title? Was it the love, the sex? What was it that got you here? Anybody going to admit it? It was the teen mom. Hilarious. You know, the whole reason I did that show was I was trying to impress my daughter at the time, who was a performer, the gorgeous blonde in the back. I really thought that she was going to think it was so cool that I was on MTV, and in the end she was just downright ticked off because her mother was on MTV and she wanted to be so. But she did get to babysit the baby, so she thought she should be in the credits at least. All right, so I'm going to be completely, this is interesting, I'm used to walking around a lot. Let me tell you a little bit about what I do and what we're going to do tonight. I'm a couples therapist. And what that means is that I work with couples. I work with married couples, I work with engaged couples, I work with couples who are in distress. You can imagine what that is. I work with couples who are saying, you know, things are going okay, but we want to make sure that we're not a casualty of this whole relationship game. You know the statistics, right? When people are getting married. Do you know what that is for marriage? First marriage divorce rates? Yeah, it's about 50%. You know what it is for second marriages? It's even higher. It's about 65. You know what it is for third marriages? You can't even conceive of that right now, can you? You're getting even higher. Getting even higher. So we really have to be aware that we're doing something really fun and unusual in this country, trying to stay in good relationships. That if we knew how to do that, and it was as easy as breathing, we would already be doing it, wouldn't we? Right? We wouldn't have these high rates of separation and divorce. And nothing causes you more stress than being disconnected from the person with whom you're attached, right? Is there anything more distressing? Like when you're in a fight with your loved one, with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or a parent, can you really study? No, I remember. It's very distressing to us. We are wired for connection, guys. We are wired to feel like we belong somewhere with someone. That's the way that you are powerfully made. That's why you get pulled into being in connection with other people. That's why you feel pain and you grieve when you lose that person. All right? It's because you are wired to be in connection and to feel like you belong with another person. But here's the tricky thing. You have a brain. Congratulations, you're alive, you have a brain, it's working. And every time you have an injury with that partner, like you get your feelings hurt or they do something that you say, I can't believe that's the one thing I thought you would never do, your brain opens up this crazy file and says, oh my gosh, here you are in this column of things that hurt me, right? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that tonight, how your brain accumulates all the things that hurt your feelings versus all the loving things that someone does for you. Right? We're going to have fun talking about that tonight. But let's talk a little bit about dating and your age first. You guys are pioneers. I don't know if you know that. But the world that you're living in is very, very different, even than the world that I was living in. I'm 46. I'd never heard of a cell phone when I was in college. That's not that long ago, guys. We didn't have personal computers. I remember one night when I had to write a paper, and I had this typewriter that buzzed, and I was so afraid I was going to lose my paper that it just had to buzz all night long. I couldn't turn it off. And it was a typewriter, and we thought it was so cool because it was electric, and you could go back and you could delete things, and maybe like it would white it out for you. It's not that long ago, guys. It was just 25 years ago. Right? You all are in this really amazing era of love and relationships and technology and change, so there's no reason to believe that you would know how to handle this. Because nobody does. We're all trying to figure this out together. I like to say we're turkeys in the same turkey soup. You know, trying to figure this whole thing out together. So I'm sitting here with you all tonight, really appreciating the fact that you took your evening There are a lot of things you could have been doing tonight, aren't there? And here you are, trying to figure out and trying to learn a bit about how to love each other better. I think that's pretty amazing. I really do. I'm sending out my admiration to all of you, because this is tough stuff. The first thing you had to do before you got here is admit that maybe you didn't know everything about this subject. Guess what? I don't either. Right? But it's something that's worth studying for the rest of your lives. So here's the problem that we're having that's kind of interesting. I'm going to take my notes out so I don't forget anything. Dating today is not set up for you to be physically or emotionally safe. That's part of the change that's happened in the last couple centuries. It's not set up for you to be physically or emotionally safe. Think about that for just a second. It used to be. It used to be. Wasn't that long ago that you didn't get to decide who you married or whom you even dated. Wasn't that long ago. Of course, there's still many cultures where that's true, but I'm talking about in this country and what you're experiencing. You didn't get to choose. Your community chose. The traditions of your culture chose. Your parents chose. Can you imagine? So take a minute right now and think, if your parents could choose who you would be dating or who you would be marrying, can you imagine? It horrifies my very being. I'm sure my children would not be thrilled either. So we live in this really interesting time of being able to choose our partners. And we choose them without any input from anyone. You can show up on your doorstep and say to a parent, or whomever it is who takes care of you, guess what, I'm getting married. Or guess what, I'm dating so-and-so, it's very serious. Doesn't matter if your friends don't like that person, and they've given you lots of feedback that, hey, this is not a good thing. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if your parents say, yeah, you're not marrying this person. Doesn't matter. You can still do it. So you're living in this really interesting time where you have all this choice and no education about how to make that choice. Think about that. It's kind of like putting you on the roads with no driver education. And you're driving around in this big old weapon. And you have no education to do so. So what we have is a culture choosing partners and going through relationships based completely on the heart, not on the head at all. I always say we're kind of like human pinball machines. You know, we're just these emotional chemistry experiments, just reacting to each other all the time instead of having a whole lot of deliberate thought about it. So I want to bring in that other piece tonight with you all about what is creating a healthy relationship and what's happening in relationships for people your age that keeps them healthy and keeps them on track. So I have some news for you. You're probably not going to date that person very long that you're dating right now. And you're almost definitely not going to marry them. So stop acting like it. All right? That's the beginning. Nobody go home yet. It's true. It's true. So something I think shifts when we talk about that. We say, well, what's the point then? What's the point of dating at this stage in your lives? What's the point? Do you all have any ideas about this? I'm really curious to hear what you say. What's the point of dating or hooking up or having a partner at this stage in your lives? I thought my 11-year-old was going to answer. She raised her hand. What? No idea? What do you think?
So you don't feel lonely?
Yeah, so you don't feel lonely. Thank you. Okay, he's just... prizes to you. First of all, for being a boy and coming here, and second of all, for being the first person to answer. I'm impressed. So not being lonely, very much so. And that goes back to what I said in the beginning, that we're wired to connect, aren't we? We're wired to belong. We're wired for being in community with other people. Think about, you look back in the history of the world, and you've got groups of people who live together and work together, each with their own job to keep the tribe alive. How do you think someone survived if they got away from the tribe or got separated from the tribe? They didn't, friends. They didn't. So we know, I think on a very primal level, we know that we need to be in community and need to be connected to other people, that we are healthier, we live longer, and it's true. The research tells us that people who are in long-term relationships live longer. Long-term healthy relationships live longer. All right? Now, I think there are lots of reasons for that. One is, when you get older, somebody says to you, did you take your medicine? Or, have you been to the dentist in a long time? Have you had your vitamins? We have all those things, but there are also lots of other good reasons we stay in long-term relationships, because being lonely, being alone or being lonely is actually toxic for our bodies, right? So there's a part of us that knows, like he's saying, that it's too painful to be lonely, so we reach out. And sometimes we don't reach out in the best places, because we think it's better to be with somebody than to be alone. That can be a really good driver, you're right, thank you for that. Anybody else? What are the other reasons that you date, hook up, partner at your age?
Physical pleasure.
Physical pleasure. You all don't agree with that, right? What's that? Yeah. What's that? Boredom. Boredom is another one. I'm not ready to leave the physical pleasure yet. Yes, that's a big part of it. What she's saying is really important, that we are also wired for pleasure. Have you ever noticed how, by the way, there are no cookies left there? Those are wiped out in a second because they hit those sugar parts of our heads and they give us pleasure. Guess what? Partners give us the same pleasure, the same parts of the brain, right? When we feel loved, when we feel connected. All that lovely brain chemistry starts firing, okay? Same thing as cookies. You guys light up the cocaine centers in each other's brains. Did you know that? You really do when you're getting connected to somebody. So physical pleasure is one of our drives. It really is. Have you, you probably have had animals. Animals play, don't they? Ever seen them play? We love watching the animals in our house play. Right? They play. They're driven to do that. We know we're healthier and we're stronger when we play. That's part of physical pleasure. Obviously, there's a sexual part that we'll talk about as well. You're driven. You're driven to not be alone. You're driven to be connected with people. You're driven for pleasure. And partners give wonderful pleasure. Boredom is another one that she just said. Can anybody connect to that? Yeah, sometimes when you're bored, it's nice to have somebody to be bored with you. To be bored with you or to make you less bored, right? That makes sense. What else? Anything else? What's the point? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, trial and error is an important one. And I actually think it's the one we forget. So thank you for bringing that in too. Trial and error. If you're not going to marry these people, which I'm still telling you that you're not, even though you think so, if you're not going to marry these, I'm glad you're getting a giggle out of this. It's true. Then what you're doing right now, fundamentally, my hope for you is that relationships that you are in right now are teaching you something about yourself. That's what I want you to be doing in your relationships. I want you to be learning about yourself. Learning about yourself, learning what you like, learning what kind of partner works for you. Hopefully you're learning about which ones don't work for you too, right? Now let's picture this. Let's picture that we had a room that was 50-50, boys and girls in here, right? And you could look across the hallway, and all the boys are over here, all the girls are over here, and we could look across. If I looked at all the boys lined up against the wall, do you think that all of them would be right for me? No. I wouldn't be attracted to all of them either, right? Well, hopefully not. I mean, we're talking about boys our age, my age. That was creepy, sorry. But if you took any side, okay, take me out of this, all right? Let's say you had a girl looking across the stage. She's not going to be attracted to every boy on that stage. There's no reason to believe that every boy across that stage should be attracted to her, right? So there is a filtering process that's not personal. It's about finding someone who's right for you. And boy, it hurts when you think you really like that person over there and they may not like you back. All it is filtering. I remember hearing that that saying, if it's not your train, don't worry. Hang out right there. There's another train coming. Right? What's the likelihood that you're going to be alone the rest of your life? So, because there's 7+ billion people in the world. If that one person that you think is the best thing ever doesn't return your affections, then what I want you to do is make a list of all the things that you liked about that person. Put it on your list. These are the things that are really important to me in my next relationship, that I want to find these qualities, and I promise there's somebody else out there who has those qualities. Take a breath and wait. All right, take a breath and wait. I promise there's somebody else out there. All right? It's a filtering process right now for you to learn a lot about yourself. What you like, what you don't like, what works for you. Are you somebody who likes to date somebody who's the life of the party? Do you want somebody to sit at home and read with you at night? Do you want somebody who does yoga with you? Are you somebody who likes to hike on the weekend? What do you really like? I've got a predominantly female group in here. And I want to say this to the females. Females are awful in this one area. We will pretend like we like certain things. I know that little knowing giggle. That you pretend that you like certain things until you get into the relationship and it's really solid, and then not really like it all that much. And I can't tell you how many times I've had a couple come into my office where he'll say, you know, when we were dating, she liked football. She liked my mother. Right? Or she liked my friends. Or the fact that I do whatever it is. She actually joined me and did these things with me. Number one complaint of men after marriage is what happened to that girl who liked me and liked to do things with me. Number one complaint of men. You thought it was going to be sex, it wasn't. Number one complaint of men is what happened to that girl who liked to hang out with me, liked to do things with me. So girls, hold that in your heart, because that's really an important thing with the men in our lives. What happened to that girl who liked to hang out with me? Right? Now you girls are wondering what the number one complaint is for you guys, right? The number one complaint for women after they've been in a long-term relationship is, I'm not sure he still picks me. Out of all the girls in the world, he used to act like I was his favorite one. But now it doesn't seem like that. You know, it seems to be that this is the way we're wired. There's a universal feeling about this for females. So men, take note of that. This is what works really well for females, is the idea that out of all the girls in the world, you're glad you got me. Right? That this is when relationships are really strong, when we see that happening. But let's go back to the history a little bit further. Why this is difficult. Do you know why this is hard? Why relationships are so difficult? Look at all your friends who showed up to talk about this. Why is this so difficult? You know?
Paranoia.
Paranoia? Tell me more about that.
That as soon as something goes badly, you assume that it's going to fall apart.
Yeah. Well, that tells me that when people feel that way, they've had some really painful experiences where that's happened. Right? And thank you for that, because we're going to get back to that in just a little bit. You're right. This is hard because you're not taking a class in this, are you? How to keep relationships good. And the rules are changing a lot in your culture about what does hooking up mean? What does dating mean? It's different, guys, than even when I was coming up, okay? You're pioneers, like I said. What I can talk to you tonight about is what keeps relationships good and what gets in the way. All right? Would that be helpful? What keeps them good and what gets in the way? All right? Everybody seems to be here and attending. This is fascinating. I'm fascinated that there's so many people here. All right, so I'm going to tell you a fun statistic. You know the top 2 times that people lie in their lives? When they're dating and when they're interviewing. We have actually found this to be true. That is hardcore research. What do you think? Does it sound about right? When we're dating and when we're interviewing, we tend to self-inflate and make ourselves bigger and better, just so this other person will like us. And if you look in the animal kingdom, that's exactly what they're doing. They're making their behinds look really big and inflated and red, or their throats, or they're doing something with their feathers. They're making themselves look so much bigger so that they can be attractive to their mate, or they're turning a color to attract a mate. And guess what? That's what you're doing when you're dating or you're interviewing. Does that surprise you? I think that's such a fun statistic. I want to challenge you not to do that, though. Doesn't seem to work, does it? So I want to talk to you first as we're thinking about healthy relationships, about taking a relationship resume for yourself. As you leave Sewanee, you're going to create a resume, aren't you? Of what you've done here, what your experiences were in your preparation. And hopefully all of those things led to the knowledge you have going forward as a partner, as a worker. I'd like to have you mentally, and maybe even when you go home, you don't have to admit it to anybody that you're doing it, but think back about the relationships that you've had and what you've learned. Look at each of them like a class. Each relationship that you've had, like a class. What did I learn from her about myself and about relationships? What did he teach me? Relationships are our best teachers, aren't they? What did I learn about myself? What did I learn about relationships from that person? A lot of our lessons are really painful, aren't they? So the relationship resume. Because here's the neat trick. You remember in the beginning when I said divorce rate was 50% for first marriages, and it gets higher and higher as we go along? It's not that you have more likelihood of being divorced just because you've been divorced. That's not it. It's that people aren't learning anything. They're not realizing that the common variable is, guess what? Themselves. Exactly. So when you don't learn anything from your experience, you're just doomed to repeat it. Even if you think that other person was the scourge of the earth, and everyone in your entire class knows that this person is awful and treated you badly, I'd still like for you to take a look at yourself and say, what did I do? What was my part in all of this? How did I create some of the mess and some of the lack of health in this relationship? What was my part in it? That's actually the mature thing to do. And it's hard to do. It's hard for the couples in my practice. They want to come in and say, I just want to tell you everything that's terrible that this person did. And then I want you to agree with me and change them completely now. So they're exactly what I want, right? It's not usually or ever true. So that's my challenge for you all tonight, is to start with a relationship resume. Go back through these painful relationships, remembering that the variable is you. And look at what you're learning from these people and look at what they're teaching you. I'm seeing some very thoughtful looks out there as I've posed this question. Yeah, relationships are going to be changing all over Sewanee this weekend. I'm excited. I want lots of emails about this. This is going to be a lot of fun. So one of the things that I want to talk to you about tonight is about healthy relationships and what each of the genders are doing to keep relationships healthy. Now, females, I'm going to teach you the absolute best trick in relationships to keeping them healthy. Are you ready? Boys are loving this too. They actually are probably all going to hug me when we're done. But I'm expecting it. The best thing that you can do if you're a female in relationship with anyone, is know what you want, know what you need, and express it. All right? Your partners are not psychic. Let me say that again. Your partners are not psychic. Let me say that again. Your partners are not psychic. Now, there's a myth, and it's been perpetuated, I believe, by Disney. If you look at the Disney movie, okay, look at this. We've got the damsel in distress, right? And somehow there's this partner who rides up on this steed of some sort and somehow has the weapon that is perfectly made for the, I don't know, the dragon of the day. And somehow with no real carnage, this beast is removed, taken care of, and all in the right time, right? It's amazing how that happens. Think about that. What a setup that is. If you look back at all of the stories like that, we look at all the princess stories, we look at a lot of the stories that are just the archetypal stories of relationships. There's one person who's in distress and there's another one who knows exactly what to do. And it's not like the partner came in and said, hey, tell me what's going on. my help with. And no, he just comes up, or she comes up and fixes the problem, right? Thank goodness we have strong female princesses more recently dealing with some of the dragons. It's a myth. It's a myth. And if there's anything that's more frustrating, the most frustrating thing for the males in our culture is what we're hearing is she wants me to guess what she's saying, or what she's needing, or what she's thinking about. She wants me to guess. If he loved me, he would know. Admit it, you thought it. If he loved me, he would know. Now, when I'm talking to you tonight, I'm using a lot of he and she, but obviously this does not just go for heterosexual relationships. This goes for all the relationships that we have. That you cannot assume that somebody's going to know what you need. The best thing you can do is check in with yourself. What is it that I'm trying to do? Is it because I'm bored that I'm trying to reach out for this person? Is it because I'm just wanting pleasure? Is that what's going on with me? Is it because I'm lonely that's what's going on with me? This is really important. It's the assumptions that go on in relationship that cause the majority of the issues. Did you know that? It's not that you picked the wrong person. It's very often the assumption that you should know. If you loved me, you would know. And I don't know how that is, that one would know what's going on with a partner. People can be married for decades and not know that stuff. All right? So if there's anything I want to really talk to you females about tonight, because females are the worst at this, it's the idea that if he loved me, or if my partner loved me, that person would know. Be able to speak up. And let me talk to you about how to do that. Do you know that 94% of the time the way you start a conversation is the way it ends? I don't know who measures that kind of stuff, but it's good research. The way that you start a conversation is how it ends. So if you start off a conversation by saying, you jackass, you left me at this again, and or you never spend time with me, or you don't want to touch me, or you're not very nice to me. If you start a conversation off like that, it's likely, highly likely to end that way. How does it sound if I do it very differently and just say, I miss you? I miss spending time with you. I miss hugging you. It's very different than saying, you don't touch me anymore. What's wrong with you? Right? So if I can give you one major tip, well, I'm going to give you lots, but one of the big ones I'm going to give you as females is talk about what you need. Talk about it in a way that pulls your partner closer to you, okay? That's what's happening in healthy relationships. People are able to talk to each other in a way that says, I care about you. Now, here's what's difficult. If you watch any of the sitcoms on television, guess what's happening? It's all sarcasm and a lot of daggers thrown at each other verbally, and it's funny. I laugh at it too, right? But I sure as heck wouldn't want to live that way. But you all have grown up with that as your education. It's supposed to be entertainment. People can't repair from talking to each other the way that people do on television shows or on YouTube videos or whatever it is. People cannot repair from that way of talking. Any of you ever watch 2.5 Men? You watch that show? I love that show. That is just absolutely brilliant writing and hilarious. It'd be a horrible way to live, right? I think we have to be really careful about the way that we talk to each other. Are you talking to the person you care about in a way that says, I care about you? Are you doing that? Are you talking to your partner in a way that says, I care about you? What we see in healthy relationships is that we've got 20 times the positive as we do negative in every interaction with a couple. Imagine that. 20 times the positive. That's what's happening in a healthy relationship. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? 20 times the positive. So that 20 to 1, if you think about the ratio, that 20 to 1 means that I'm going to step on my partner's toes every once in a while. I'm going to do something where I need to apologize, right? Of course, we're just people growing old and flossing together, and we're gonna do things that are gonna hurt each other's feelings. I know her; she's my child. We're and coat holder. We're obviously going to do things like that, but we need to have 20 times the amount of positive as we do that negative moment. So I want to challenge you in your relationships if they're struggling in any area, whether it's with a parent or a friend or a colleague, a fellow student, somebody who lives in your dorm with you. Really look at your behavior. Am I doing the 20-to-1, positive to negative? You don't have to, but if you want to keep your relationship healthy, you need to. All right, 20-to-1. You think you can remember that? If you're going to get tattoos, get that one. 20-to-1, because it's a really important number to have. That is the sign, and we know this, of a healthy relationship. All right? Let me give you another sign that I want you to take with you. There's something called bids. In a healthy relationship, we see people bidding for each other's attention all the time. And you're going to notice this now. It's going to be really fun, right? And I want you to do experiments with people who didn't show up tonight and just see if you can mess with them a little bit. All right? So there's this great researcher named John Gottman. And what he found is that there are 3 things that people are doing with each other all the time in bids in a relationship. The first one is called turning toward. So when your love interest, this person you have a crush on, right, or somebody you've been seeing for a while, let's say that person is looking at a book in front of them. They're looking at that book and they might go, Somebody who's turning toward in a healthy relationship might look at them and say, hey, what are you reading? Right? It was a bid. The was a bid. Or if I were just laughing at what I was reading. What are you reading? Right? I'm connecting to that person. Picture it like knocking on a door. Knock, knock, who's there? Right? Knock, knock, who's there? And what we find when we do the research and videotape these people and watch is that in healthy relationships, people are bidding all the time. And they're doing that turning toward. Do you know what I'm saying when I say that? So one person's saying something, the other person's reacting in a way that shows interest and caring. Now, here are the other 2 options. There's turning away, which means that I'm giggling or I'm reading my book and I go, Nobody answers the door. Nobody says anything. Nobody responds. It's like I'm not even there. Right? And that goes back to what you were talking about feeling lonely. You can feel lonely in a relationship, can't you? Okay, if you haven't had that experience yet, you can. But that's a very lonely feeling when you have somebody turning away, not responding to your knock at the door. So that knock was just a laugh or a comment, and nobody responds. What an awful feeling that would be, huh? It's a high predictor of breaking up. Okay? The next one is called turning against. So I'm reading my book, I'm laughing at something, or I go, And the person says, would you be quiet, please? I am really trying to focus over here. Right? Sometimes when I'm not talking to college students, I use more colorful language at that point about what people are saying to each other at that time. That's a turning against. That's knocking at the door and someone saying, get the heck off my doorstep. Go away, in other words. That's not going to invite somebody to feel like they want to be with you, that they belong with you. So now, as you go out in the world this week, I'd love to notice bids. And who's bidding for your attention? Sometimes a bid is a note. I've noticed in your culture, a bid is also a text. Will this person respond to me, right? What's going to happen and how are they going to respond? Are they going to respond with love? Are they going to respond with, I'm glad you texted me kind of a feeling? Are they not going to respond at all? Are they going to respond with, who is this? So we never know what the response is going to be. That's definitely a turning against. Don't do that. So I think those are really some important tools for you guys to put in your tool belt. All right, really important tools for you going out in the world this week and trying to figure out your bids. Who's bidding for your attention and how you respond to that person's bid. Now let's change gears. One of the things that I was hearing about with Sewanee that sounded Sewanee specific was about some of the interesting interactions with males and females here, that there's a lot of separation during the week. but then there's a lot of connection during the weekends. Is that a nice way to put it? And then there's some awkwardness in the aftermath of these weeks where we're back in classes and have to see each other, but we're not really talking to each other about what happened. But I promise that was me, or whatever it was. And so I'm really curious about this with you all, because it's not a culture that would, I went to Furman for my undergraduate, and a very similar feel to what you all have here. And I guess there were the separate tables and all that kind of stuff, I'm remembering that, but I think there was a lot of interacting during the day. But what I'm hearing is that that's not true for you all. That there's a lot of, you all were giggling at that, so this must be true. That's always a sign that it's true. That there's a lot of separateness during the week, and a lot of togetherness during the weekend that complicates the separateness that ensues the next week. Is that right for you? So help me a little bit as before we go forward. What are your ideas about why that happens? That we have this separateness during the week where we're not really mingling as much, and then this kind of frantic togetherness from what I understand on the weekends. Yes, sir, in the way back.
Greek organizations.
Greek organizations. Okay, I remember that. So you agree with that? You agree with that right there? Okay. That was what you were going to say as well. Okay. Okay, and so Greek organizations are a bunch of Greek letters. What is it about the people in the organizations that is causing the separateness during the week? And what do you think? Will you tell me more about what you're saying?
Just the same group of guys you always hang out with, same group of girls always hang out with, and
Okay.
it sort of gets cloistered when it comes to mealtime.
Okay.
And then weekends roll around, you have parties with sororities or whatever, and
Yeah.
like you hang out for whatever time, and you know, things go as they do. And
Right, that
then the
makes
weekend
sense.
starts up again.
I remember the go as they do. Yes, we would love to. All right. Okay, so let's think about it this way. I want to propose a couple of things to you. First of all, as humans, we like to go where we feel successful, right? We all like to go where we feel successful. And if I feel successful in my group, I'm not as likely to reach out outside of it, right? That goes back to what we were talking about in the very beginning, about the human need to belong and feel like I'm a part of a bigger group. I totally get that. That's what these organizations are. When you get older, it's things like junior league, and so I did not do that. Or there are other groups that people join, you know, whether it's a book club or a country club. Oh, sorry. Okay, I just dismantled this thing. I'm so sorry. Okay, now this is not good. This sounds like that typewriter I was telling you about that I sat all night listening to. I'm so sorry. I'm going to keep on talking. I just need to shake. Sorry, you see, usually I walk around and talk with my hands, so I didn't mean to snap it. I'm trying to have a good 20-to-1 relationship with it. No, I remember we did the same thing. We did the same kind of interacting back and forth. But it is true that people like to go where they feel successful, right? We like to go where we feel successful. I want to propose something kind of interesting to you. Have you ever met somebody who had too many friends? Like, have you ever had enough friends? By the way, you're just getting started. I said that poorly. You're just getting started. Some of my dearest friends are the people that I've made in my 40s, the friends I've made in my 40s. Although I spent the day yesterday with my best college girlfriend in Atlanta shopping. And it was really fun. And you know what's neat? I have room for both. You know what? I have room for both. Yeah, this little, tiny little 11-year-old up here, my precious heart here, is the dessert in our family. And next year, the last one, the sweet little thing again, she goes to a new school next year. She goes on to middle school, unless I hide her somewhere, because her mother's having a hard time accepting this. But she's going on to middle school, and she's going to a completely new school where she's not going to know a lot of people. She'll know a few. You probably wouldn't tell her just to hang out with the 3 she knows. Man, she'd miss out on a lot of people, wouldn't she? She'd miss out on a lot of people, and what's worse is a lot of people would miss out on her. Because she's one of the coolest kids I know. So I hope she'll get out and meet a lot of people and enjoy a lot of people, but I know her tendency, because she's a little human, will be to go where she feels like it's familiar, like you're saying, into an organization. And I totally understand the need to belong and be in that group. I'm more concerned about what happens during the weekend that then people have remorse, regret, concern, during the week, right? Especially when there isn't connection during the week. That seems to be getting a lot of head nodding, that there's a lot of concern about that. So let's talk about something that's really fun. What's the point of sex at your age? What's the point? We've got your idea over here, just plain the physical pleasure of sex at your age. What else? Yes, ma'am?
Makes you feel good.
It does make you feel good. And part of it, thank you for that, you brave one. Part of that is there's a feeling of being attractive, a feeling that you belong, a feeling of maybe I'm doing what my friends are doing, right? Those are all really powerful. By the way, that makes you human, right? Managing that is going to be really, really important. Managing with whom you decide to share your lives and your bodies is incredibly important. And here's where I want to back us up a little bit. You will have to tell stories as you get older to the people you love about what you've done with your body. It's a very sobering thought. But at some point there will be a significant other in your life. Whomever it is, you probably haven't met this person yet. Statistics tell me you haven't. But you haven't even crossed paths with this person yet. All right? And you're going to have to tell a story to that person about the decisions that you've made about your body. So I'm not up here as an ethical or moral judge because I really don't care. It doesn't affect me what you do, but I do care about your being able to be proud about the story that you have to tell this person one day about what you're doing with your life and with your body. All right? I do care that on Monday morning you're proud of the decisions you made, whatever those decisions are. What I'm finding and hearing that gets in the way, this is kind of fun, isn't it? Is not just the need to belong, the physical pleasure, that feeling that it's just fun and it's great to be with someone. Of course it is. You're made that way. It's called procreating. That's why you are all here, because somebody else liked to do that too. There's also, I want to clear up some confusion for you about why is that news? Disturbing news? I'm aware. My children are all blushing and falling under their chairs right now. I want to talk to you about why when you get to Monday, why you feel bonded to somebody that maybe you don't even like. Or why you might be grieving the fact that this person doesn't want to spend time with you and you're not even sure you want to spend time with them. There's something that's happening in the body when you become sexually active with someone. Even if you're just touching, let's say you're just holding hands or you're making out or you're doing whatever it is that you're doing over the weekend with this person, you've got a lot of chemicals going through your body, primarily oxytocin. I did not say OxyContin. Oxytocin that is going through your body. I know you're a good one. That is flowing through your body. It's a bonding hormone, all right? When you were born, right, and your parents took a look at you, they thought you were cute, and you weren't. You were shriveled up, and you had white junk all over you, and probably blood and all kinds of other guts that happen if you look back at the pictures. You were not cute. Mine were. I'm sorry, mine were gorgeous. But there's this oxytocin that's happening, especially in the mother, where all of a sudden she's had this slimy thing, and the only way that nature can get her to not throw that thing against a wall, because it's loud and terribly inconvenient and kind of hurts, is to have this incredible bonding hormone. Right? It's not the only way, but it's a big tool to keep you to get bonded. So when the mother is nursing that baby, this oxytocin dance is incredible, right? You get so bonded to this little being. And that's what's happening, that same feeling between a male and a female when you are dating and when you are holding hands and when you are touching. You are doing a bonding dance with this person, right? Whether you like them or not, you are still having this great chemical soup with them that's going to make you feel bonded to them. All right, does that make some sense? It probably makes some sense with some of the experiences that you've had. So now let's talk about prairie voles. Do you know what prairie voles are? These little tiny rodent-looking things, right? And what's interesting about the prairie vole for geeky scientists like myself is that prairie voles are incredibly monogamous. They have a partner for life, right? And if you look at their blood, which they probably don't like very much when you do, but if you look at their blood, it is full of oxytocin, completely charged, right? They have so much oxytocin going on. They're completely bonded all the time, right? So then really mean scientists go in there and fiddle with their oxytocin receptors and mess it up, and they become the most promiscuous little rodents in the animal kingdom. Seriously, if you mess with their oxytocin receptors. That's how powerful this is, guys. This drug that you're playing with. When you touch somebody, you actually are creating this bonding dance with them. So I'm just saying, be careful with how you do that, okay? Just be careful who gets to do this bonding dance with you. You know up here, you know all the reasons to do and not to do. So I could stand up here and tell you what to do and you're not going to listen to me, so I'm not going to waste my breath on a lot of that. It's kind of like, I always say it's not like I can go to downtown Chattanooga where I live and say to people, you know, you really shouldn't smoke. And none of them are going to say, oh, thank you, Dr. Burns. I did not know that. They know. And it's not like we all don't know that we're supposed to exercise and eat a lot of green vegetables and not just Sour Patch Kids and things like that. We all know that. We all know that. It's up here, right? It's neck up. But I'm trying to get you to understand on a personal level from the experiences that you've had with a partner. Can you think back to a time you felt really bonded to somebody and you really grieved? And you thought, why am I grieving this? This person just actually treated me pretty badly. I had that experience this week with a friend of mine who went through a terrible breakup last weekend. And yes, you still get to do that when you're in your 40s. And she went through a terrible breakup and found out this guy had been cheating on her the whole time. She thought he was going to marry her and found out that he had another girlfriend in another state. And just really traumatic for this woman. And I had this very interesting conversation with her Friday night and said, you know, tell me a little bit about why you're sad. Because the unfortunate part of being a marriage counselor is I get to talk to all of my friends about their relationships. I try to tell people at cocktail parties that I work at Cracker Barrel, so people don't ask me about their love lives. Anyway, so I asked her, you know, what is it that you're so upset about? And she said, I love him. I said, okay. What is it that you love? I don't know, I just love him. Okay. Well, let me play this out for you. I'm going to be you, and I'm going to call you and say, friend, I am dating this man, and he has another girlfriend, and he's been sleeping with her since October, right? But I love him. Oh, and he's lied to me about this, and this. She could make this whole long list, and by the way, girls do this too, not just boys. But I love him, right? All that was is two things. Is the bonding hormone that had happened. They'd been touching for about 8 months. It was also dreams, what she dreamed would happen as a result of that relationship. And you all have those dreams too, don't you? When you get into a relationship, you dream about what could happen here. What could happen here with this relationship? You start having a dream about that, and you get more attached to the dream than what's really going on. Is, oh yeah, I'm in college, I'm probably not going to marry this person. I might, but statistics are highly against it. We start going down the line with that dream, and when our hearts get broken, we start the grieving. Right? Does that make sense to you about oxytocin and what's happening? How you might want to be careful. That'd be a good bumper sticker, wouldn't it? Like, be careful who gets to share your oxytocin. You guys would be the only people who would understand it, wouldn't you? Don't share your oxytocin with the world. Right? But inevitably, all these relationships are cutting off and getting jagged, aren't they? Here on a Monday morning or a Tuesday morning. And I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about breakups for a second. I think this is really important, how to break up well. How to break up well. Do you guys know how to do this yet? It's not by text, by the way. Think about that while I get my water. All right. How do you think, what's the best way to break up? I think so. I think the best way to break up, well, here's a rule of thumb. try this on for a rule of thumb, and it's probably going to go over just as well as don't smoke, it's not good for you. But I think if you can't talk about sex with a partner, you shouldn't be having sex with that partner. If you can't have an intelligent conversation with that person about what you're doing, then you're not ready to do that. And if you can't have an intelligent conversation with your partner about the status of your relationship in a loving and respectful way, then you're not mature enough to date. All right? And I kind of think we ought to have driver's licenses for people, like dating licenses, like whether you've gone through a course where you learn how to do this stuff and gotten to practice on some mannequin or something, I don't know, about how to, not the sex part, the breaking up. The breaking up part, we gutter minds. But most of us don't know how to do that, right? We don't know how to go and end a relationship that started. We don't know how to do that. So I want to make some suggestions to you about how to do that. I know we're all over the map tonight, but I feel like we had to provide a buffet, so you get little bits of lots of things. I'm also giving the lovely Kelsey a list of books that she's offered to put maybe on the website, is that right? That would be wonderful resources for you. If you go to Barnes & Noble or you go on Amazon, there are tons of books about relationships, and many of them are terrible, right? But as a couples therapist, I think I can lead you towards some that would really be helpful to you, especially at your age, to do what you need to do and learn what you need to do to be in good, healthy relationships. Back to breaking up. All right? Because you need to get really good at this, by the way. You haven't had your last breakup. You haven't had your last time that you're not seeing this person. I want to talk to you about how to do that. This is what our research says, and this is what all the interviewing says about people in breaking up. When you break up with someone, I want you to first remember about the 94% of the time when you start a conversation is the way it ends. All right? This is really important. You become a part of this person's story about his or her life. He or she will always remember. Don't think that he or she is not going to remember you when you come back for a college reunion. Right? He or she is going to remember you and how you treated him or her in the breakup. I'd like for you to start any conversation about this by talking about the things you like about that person. Very important. These are the things that I like about you. These are the things that make us not really a good fit. Right? Yeah? And then asking that person how they're doing is really, really important. The third part of that, then, is checking in and saying, is there any way that we can stay as friends or connected? If you're going to hang out with somebody enough, then I'm going to assume that you like them. But maybe they're not a good fit for you, right? So the three parts of this. Tell this person some things you like about him or her. Talk about the things that you learned about yourself during that relationship. This is the mature way to handle this, instead of avoiding each other in the halls or not returning phone calls, right? And it's incredibly disrespectful of somebody who spent some time and some feelings and perhaps some oxytocin on you, right? Going up by that rule, you can't lose. I want you to like yourself at the end of a relationship when it's over. I want you to like how you handled it. That should be your goal. I want to be able to respect the way I handled myself in this relationship. All right? Does that make sense? All right, it's complicated, isn't it? Does it sound like I'm too far removed from this to be talking about it? It was too long ago? No, because I was just talking to my friend about it Friday night, about how to break this off. Right? Now I'm going to tell you a great story about rats. You ready to hear about some rats? Yeah. When I was a student at Furman, I was a psychology student, imagine. And we all had our own rats, and we got to train them in my class called Learning. Are any of you psychology students? Do you have a psychology degree? Okay, so we had this class called Learning, and it was all about learning behaviors. And my rat had to learn that every time he pressed a bar, right, he would get a pellet. This was big news for my rat, because I don't think they fed them. So anyway, bad news. You wouldn't volunteer to be a rat in that study, I'm sure. Okay, so you press the bar, get a pellet. Press the bar, get a pellet, right? And every time he pressed the bar, he got a pellet, right? When we cut him off, when we said no more food, no negotiating, no matter how cute he was, no more. He learned very quickly that nothing else was coming, so he stopped pressing the bar. He might have pressed it a few times, like maybe there's something there. And when he learned that there was nothing there, he stopped pressing. Now, the other rats were trained in a different way. They were given a pellet every once in a while. So maybe every first time they pressed it, every 10th time they pressed it, every 20th and back to 3rd, and 8th, and 4th. They never knew when they were going to get a pellet, this other group, right? You cut that group off, they will press the bar until they die. Because they learned to believe that there was hope. That if I just kept on pressing. How does this relate to breakups? Are you guys connecting the dots here? That we don't want to give false hope to people if we're not interested in being with them. What I don't want you to be doing is saying, well, maybe we could go out, maybe we could hook up. It's nice, I'll respond to you because maybe I'm lonely, or I'm bored, or I just want the physical pleasure, or the other things that we were talking about, and kind of lead them along. If you're not interested in that relationship, be very clear about cutting that off with love and grace in a way that you like yourself. If you do this intermittent reinforcement schedule, is what it's called, where you occasionally give someone a pellet, they're going to, or whatever you're giving them, you're going to continue to have all kinds of attention from this person, because we are built for hope, guys. We are all built for hope of love and connection. Otherwise, we would all be dead, because our ancestors, way back when, had to keep on walking to find water. They had to hope that at some point they were going to find water, and they had to keep going and going to find water and to find food. And if they didn't have hope, then none of us would be here. If they weren't driven to find something that met their needs, we wouldn't be here. So the best thing you can do with love and grace when you're going through a breakup is, if you have certainty about that, to cut it off. Another thing that I want to talk to you about that makes it really hard for you guys is what we talked about in the very beginning, about why is this hard right now to pick a partner. Remember, I was telling you that it used to be that parents gave us feedback, our culture gave us feedback, our traditions told us who we were going to choose, and all of a sudden that's very different, or our faith or whatever it was helped you figure it out, and now you don't have that. And what we have all stopped doing as a culture, that's very important, is we have stopped listening to our peers about relationships. Who knows these people you're dating better than the people who are around you, or the people you're hooking up with, right? Than the people around you. How many times have you dismissed what your friends have said about a boy or a girl? How many times? I know you have. And the people around you have said, oh, please don't do that. Or they've tried to drag you away, kicking and screaming from the party where you're just sure you're going home with that person, and they're saying, please don't do that. Please don't do that, because I'm going to have to spend 2 days deprogramming you from this, right? They know exactly what's going on. I want to really inject the idea into you all tonight that it's very important to listen to your peers. You will really change your lives if you will listen to your friends, and maybe even your family if they've been around that person. Listen to your friends when they give you feedback about this person. Listen to your friends with an open head and an open heart. You're going to get information that we used to have about relationships. It's very, very important. All right? Can you imagine? I know it's kind of a stretch because it's not what you're doing now, but you're going to be much better informed. Does that make sense? All right. How are we doing on time, Kelsey? I don't know how I'm doing.
It's around 8.
Wow. Okay, so I still have a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. I still have a few more minutes because we started a little bit late. Ooh, that's been a lot of information, hasn't it? You feel like you've had a fire hose in your mouth with all this information about love and relationships and sex and be careful about your body. Yeah. We know the one thing that's getting us into a lot of trouble, and Kelsey and I talked about this a little bit. Boy, you guys are so fortunate to have Kelsey and Joanna, who are trying to bring you people who will help you stay healthy. And I hope you will appreciate them in some way this week, because they don't get paid. They do this out of love for their peers and the people around them, and I'm sitting in a lot of admiration for them, for what they're doing, right? But one thing they talked to me about a little bit was violence on campus, and some of the things that you all are talking about as a culture, about sexuality and violence and date rape and the things that are coming up that thank goodness you're talking about. There was a time in our culture we didn't talk about that. So the fact that these ladies are so brave and that you all will come in here and talk about is important. A lot of the things that we've talked about here tonight are preventive measures that keep you from getting into a situation like that. I want you to be listening to your peers when they say, I don't know if this is a good situation for you. They may have heard something. We're talking boys or girls, by the way. All right, this could be a bad situation. I want you to really listen to your peers. Another one is I want you to stop and take a pause. And I know this is a lot to ask, but the girls were asking me at dinner, maybe what's the number one thing that I would tell people that's important to know about relationships at your age? And I would say it's the ability to monitor your own emotions, to manage your own emotions, because I know they're all over the map. But being able to take a pause and say, why am I about to hook up with this person? Am I just lonely? Am I just wanting physical pleasure? Okay. Am I just bored? Am I just wanting to have fun, wanting to belong somewhere? Am I just being part of the system, what everybody else is doing? If you can stop and take a pause and check with yourself and say, what am I doing here? What's the point of this hookup? And if it's in alignment with something that you'll be okay with on Monday morning, okay. Nobody can stop you. But I want you to take that pause and ask yourself, why am I doing this? This is not different than when I'm working with women, primarily women, but some men with eating disorders. And they'll come in and they'll say, gosh, I don't know why I eat the entire gallon of ice cream. Or the people in my office maybe who are dealing with substance abuse, whether it's alcohol or cocaine or heroin or whatever it is. They're all saying the same thing about the substance, is that it feels like a warm hug. All right, they're all saying that about the substance that they're abusing. Very often we're using other people in the same way. As a substance, as I said when we first got in here, as a substance that lights up the cocaine centers in our brain. Is that what we're doing? We can prevent a lot of violence if we stop ourselves and stop each other from getting into difficult situations, all right? We also know that a lot of the dating violence happens within the first 10 weeks of school. Did you know that? First 10 weeks of the school year? A lot of the sexual violence that we have received going on. Not that it's not still going on, but that's when people are just getting to know each other and they're not taking the time to really figure out if this person is somebody I want to spend my time with. My brother-in-law has been in Iraq 3 times. And he decided when Blondie back there was starting to talk about boys, he decided he was going to sit down and talk to her about it because he was horrified, right? That she was starting to talk about boys. And are any of you military-oriented or interested in that kind of thing? Okay, there you go. Hi, dear. Do you know the topic vetting? Do you know that word vetting?
I don't think so.
Okay, this is a new word for me too, but I'm going to share it with you, and it's perfect for dating. So my brother-in-law, look at Bennett, it's turning purple. My brother-in-law said to her, he said, it's really important when you're dating and when you're seeing somebody to take your time in getting to know someone. He said, when I'm working with the enemy, right, when I'm working with the enemy and we're trying to build a road in Iraq, he said, I don't give that person my first name yet. I just don't. He said, until he earns my trust, then he gets my first name. And after a while, after we've been working together and we haven't blown each other up or we haven't done anything really harmful to each other, and I think I can trust this person and he can trust me, he might get my last name. And we go very slowly. It would be foolish for me to divulge everything in the very beginning, right? In dating relationships, we have a different agenda than Eric does when he's in Iraq. He's trying to get a mission done. Here, we're trying to do all these things that you guys have talked about. We're trying to belong. We're trying to feel loved. We're doing all these really important primal things. But we're not putting that pause in there that says, why am I doing that with this person, right? We're not slowing it down enough. We've also got alcohol getting in the way. That lowers all the inhibitions, right? We're not making the decisions that we need to make. Help your friends, guys, when you see them getting into a tough situation. Does vetting make sense? You've got this new term for dating. You need to go very, very slowly. And understand that the dating culture set up for you right now, I want to go back to the first thing I said to you, is not set up for you to be physically or emotionally safe. You're going to have to set it up to be that way on your own. You're going to have to educate yourselves about what healthy relationships are. And listen to what Kelsey and Joanna are bringing to you about keeping yourself safe. Okay? Very, very important. Listen to your friends. I gave a lecture at a high school recently, and I called it Dating and Avocados. What is the similarity? Which I thought was incredibly funny. My teenager did not. But, we didn't have avocados when I was growing up in my home, and so I didn't know how to cut them open, which was kind of embarrassing, so I never wanted to do it because I didn't know how to do it. That goes to that whole thing I said earlier about we do what we feel successful doing. And so I knew I was supposed to have avocados. I knew they were good for me, right? So I Googled how to cut open an avocado on YouTube. And I learned how to do that. And now I will say I'm healthier because I know how to cut open an avocado. I know even the fancy tool of how to take the pit out by smacking it with a knife. I'm telling you, I'm really good at this. I could have my own little cooking show about avocados. But I had to look it up. And I want to encourage you to do the same thing. You're not supposed to know this, guys. You're not supposed to know how to stay in a healthy relationship. You're not supposed to know how to do this, all right? Your partners aren't either. You're just learning together. You're just learning what you like, what this other person likes. You're learning about yourself. That's what dating is right now. Let me say it again. You are not likely to be marrying these people. Please stop acting like it. This is a place where you're going to be enjoying someone and learning about yourself, right? And keeping yourself healthy in the meantime, right? Okay, so let's start to wrap up. But here's what I want to say. I offered to Kelsey and Joanna that I will stay after for a little while. For those of you who have questions about healthy relationships, or you have specific questions, I know that we can stay here for a couple days, which I'm not going to be able to do because we've got bedtime and probably homework that's not done. But I'm happy to stay after for a little while and answer your questions. That was a lot of talking and I didn't get to move. Just doesn't count as exercise. All right.